And today we're joined by Dr. Arthur Laffer, whose name you might recognise. He's the famous originator of the Laffer curve, which says that there's a maximising, in terms of revenue, a revenue maximising tax rate beyond which it becomes self-defeating to raise the tax rate further. Good to be with you,
Thank you very much.
Dr. Laffer. Europe's economies are barely growing at the moment. The US and the UK have had stuttering recoveries after the financial crisis. What does your work suggest should be done by governments to try to engender more economic growth?
Stuttering recovery is, I think, an overstatement of what's happening in the U.S. I mean, we had this huge collapse 2007, 2008, and it just stopped falling. But we have not been growing employment faster than the population growth. I mean, really have not. There's been no recovery in employment to population to speak of, or in GDP off trend. It's just not done it. And that's 8 years of pretty awful economics. There are two types of incentives you have, positive and negative. For example, in negative, if you beat a dog, you know where the dog won't be. It will not be where you gave it the beating. It's going to run like mad, but you don't know where it's going to run. But if you feed a dog, you know exactly where a dog will be. If you think about taxes, taxes are a negative incentive. People will do all they can to avoid paying taxes. They'll use evasion, avoidance, underground economy, moving their locations, going out of business. They'll do all sorts of. So what you want to do with taxes is have the lowest possible tax rate to provide people with the least incentives to evade, avoid, or otherwise not report taxable income, and the broadest tax base so they're the fewest number of places where they can put their income to avoid taxation. That's what you really want on taxation, and that's the direction we should go. I mean, just think of it for a moment. We tax speeders to get them to stop speeding. We tax cigarette smokers to get them to stop smoking. We tax alcohol drinkers to get them to stop drinking. Why on earth then do we tax income, employers, employment, profits? Why do we do that? We don't do it to get people to stop earning income. We don't do it to get people to stop hiring other people. We don't do it to get companies to stop making good products at low cost, wonderful profits. We don't. But don't think for a moment that those consequences aren't borne by the tax structure. They really are. So what you want to do is do your taxation in the least damaging fashion. And some taxes are more damaging than others. And what you want to do is collect your taxes in the least damaging fashion and then spend the money in the best fashion. And when the last dollar spent, the benefit from it, is a little bit higher than the damage done by the last dollar of taxes collected, stop. That's the end of the role of government. All of this stimulus spending stuff is just nonsense. I mean, who ever heard of a poor person spending himself into wealth? It's stupid. It really is dumb.
And perhaps clear up a confusion for us, if you would. Quite often when people cite your work on the Laffer curve, they conflate the idea that the revenue maximising rate of taxation is the same as the optimal rate. What would you say to somebody who says that?
Yeah, you should be way below that. I mean, you'd never want to be at that rate where an additional percent in tax rate destroys just enough business to have exactly the same revenue. Why would you ever want to be that? You want to be way below that rate where the last dollar of taxes, the damage done by the last dollar of taxes collected, is a little bit less than the benefit done by the last dollar of money spent. And that's way below the revenue maximizing point on the Laffer curve.
Now, critics of the supply side agenda would say, okay, this is all well and good, but actually our governments, both in the US and the UK, are still running huge budget deficits, and surely cutting taxes further at this stage would lead to even more borrowing. And given that borrowing is just deferred taxation, what's the point?
Well, I think you're right. We should go to 150% taxes, so that every time you go to the office, instead of getting a check, you get a bill. How long would you work? How much revenues would they make? They wouldn't. You know, when you're at that point of taxation, where if you raise tax rates, you collect less revenues, which you clearly are over here in the UK. I mean, they cut the highest tax rate from 50p to 45p, and you saw the revenues go up, not down, from the highest income earners. And that even doesn't count the secondary and tertiary and quadrilateral effects of all their spending and sales taxes, property, all. I mean, it is amazing how dysfunctional the tax systems are. You and we could do a lot better with tax rates in the 15 to 20% range if you're talking about current taxes. Or if you had truly flat taxes, 12, 13% flat tax rate on business net sales and on personal unadjusted gross income, get rid of all federal taxes. and you just fly like an eagle.
Well, you're certainly right to say that the UK's tax system is incredibly complex. From your work, what sort of broad principles, how would you go about attacking tax reform, both in terms of, the broad principles underlying it, and also what type of taxes you'd look to raise? Where would you like to raise money, given that we need tax revenue?
If I did it, which is I did Jerry Brown's flat tax when he ran against Clinton in the primary in 1992 in the left wing of the Democratic Party. It's not liberal or conservative, left wing or right wing, Republican or Democrat. It's just plain economics. It's math. What you want to do is get rid of all federal taxes. I wouldn't keep a one of them today. I'd get rid of the income tax. I'd get rid of the corporate tax. I'd get rid of the payroll tax of both employer and employee, Medicare, Medicaid tax. I'd get rid of the death tax. I'd get rid of the capital gains tax. I'd get rid of the unearned income tax. I'd get rid of excises. I'd get rid of tariffs. I'd get rid of all of those taxes and have in their stead 2 flat rate taxes, one on business net sales and one on personal unadjusted gross income. That would be it. And that's where you could collect the same amount of revenues with about a 12.5% tax on each of those.
But what would you say then are the very worst taxes in terms of the incentive effects?
Well,
Obviously, we talked about income tax.
I think the inheritance tax is about as disgusting as any tax I've ever seen. I mean, you can earn your income, you can pay your taxes fair and square, and you can take that after-tax income that you've earned fair and square to Vegas. You can carouse, you can gamble, you can drink, and you can smoke. And as far as my government's concerned, God bless you, it's your money. But if you want to leave that money to your kids, you rat, they'll tax you up to, 40% on the margin on that? I mean, that's disgusting. I mean, it's just really, it's going against everything that we all believe in. There's nothing wrong with earning income and paying it for your children or for giving away to or whatever you want to do. It's your money.